Chris Nicholson. I'm currently assigned to the Barrie Police Service Fraud Unit. I've been in policing for just over 17 years now. I started down in Toronto for the Toronto Police Service when I was 19, worked guns and gangs, worked drugs, a couple other units down in the city. Came up to Barrie in 2012, so I've officially been up here longer than I was down in the city for. And then when I came up here, I was working on the road for a little bit, did our community service unit, had a great opportunity to work with Julie Reynolds and in our schools unit and build a lot of community relationships. So I kind of try to take that experience with me into my new ventures, and here I am. So this is going to be, like I said, pretty interactive. If there's my favorite slide of the whole presentation is the second last slide where I actually ask you to do my job for me and tell me what new scams you guys have heard of. Because usually we're behind the 8 ball, right? That's just kind of the nature of the beast. We're usually reactive more than proactive, unfortunately. So I always take as much opportunity as I can to try and get out and speak to you guys about what I'm experiencing, hopefully get some more information from you about what you're experiencing, and we can work together to try to at least mitigate some of the losses. So you're gonna see me bob back and forth. I just have to go over to the computer to load up the next screen, but at any point, there is a section for questions at the end. And sometimes you'll notice if you have a question, the next slide might actually answer your question. So I would ask maybe just to hold off until the end, but if it's really burning and really getting at you, again, you can just put your hand up and bark at me, and I'm usually pretty responsive, okay? So let's see where we're going after we get started. So what is fraud? Everyone who by deceit, falsehood, or other fraudulent means, whether it is not false pretense within the meaning of the act, defrauds the public or any one person, whether ascertained or not, of any property, money, or valuable security or any service, blah, blah, blah. It's basically an easy way to say that fraud is theft plus a lie. So if somebody is taking something of yours and they're lying to you, that's usually a fraud, right? So that can come in all shapes and form. The most recent one that we dealt with, especially targeting grandparents and seniors, is the grandparent scam. So it was on the news. We ended up doing an arrest. I pretended to be one of the homeowners, and the court courier came up to collect an envelope that was supposed to be full of $10,000 cash. It was actually full of newspaper clippings, and me and my partner did a takedown in the middle of the driveway. So that was a good ending to the story, but they targeted over 5 days. It was $146,000 that they took from our community. So it felt really good to finally get that guy, but it didn't stop him from collecting that quantity of cash and sending it off probably we believe it went into like various Bitcoins and cryptocurrency wallets, so extremely difficult to trace. Okay, so there's some common fraud scenarios and scams. I'm just gonna see if I can pause some of this. So these are pretty common ones, and this presentation is geared towards teens and seniors. They asked me to do a kind of dual presentation, but there's a couple of different ones. We're gonna go over a few different ones. Prize is a big one. The grandparent scheme I just touched on. Romance scams, believe it or not, are actually hugely affected by our senior population. So oftentimes what happens is you get into a situation where it's a widowed situation, and they're back experiencing dating and meeting new people, and a lot of times it's online. So we get into the senior population, they experience romance scams quite frequently. Actually, it's one of the biggest ones that we deal with. And sale of merchandise or service and phishing, you'll see a lot of these kind of go hand in hand, and I'll explain the ones that I noticed that target our senior community most frequently. I'll be able to highlight for you. So that's just an example of Gilbert comic for a scam. So you'll see is enter your scam, and then as soon as they say enter your bank account number, okie dokie, right? So that's a phishing. So they'll send the same email out to 10,000 people, and all they need is one person to enter their information, right? Then they're off to the races. So, and we'll go over a couple more things in detail how to prevent and protect yourself. So here's the most common ones that we see for seniors, and I'll just touch on the first one is an extortion scam. So extortion happens when someone unlawfully obtains money, property, or service from a person, entity, or institution through coercion. So basically they're forcing you into doing something, forcing you money. Give us $10,000 or we're going to, keep your grandson in custody. That's a typical extortion. There may be threats of an arrest warrant or imprisonment. Has anybody ever gotten that phone call from CRA saying there's a warrant out for your arrest? Yeah, me too. I got one at the office yesterday. It was hilarious. So And I ended up asking the guy I said, we kept him on the line for about 15, 20 minutes. I said, what does the RCMP stand for anyway? And there was a long dramatic pause and then he hung up on me. So I guess they're not really doing their research. But so they may request personal information such as your social insurance number, date of birth, address, or request consumers empty their bank accounts to deposit funds to be cleared from illegal activity. So that's like we get into what's called a money mule situation. So we've had cases where people will click a phishing email and provide their banking info, and they don't actually lose any money themselves, but the bad guy is using your bank account to launder money. That's basically what that looks like. So they're collecting money from other people, depositing it lawfully into your account, and then making the withdrawal. So even though you're not at a loss, you're basically criminally responsible for the act, which is a fun time. They may also ask for assistance in capturing the real bad guy, right? So, and I just touched briefly on the grandparent scheme. So what the real bad guy situation looks like is they're big on gift cards. Anybody ever been approached and asked to purchase gift cards? That happened. Anybody Google gift cards, Google Play, Apple iTunes? A lot of heads doing like, oh my God, he's talking about me. Yeah, no, that's pretty frequently. So what they'll do is they'll say, hey, it's Detective Constable Nicholson. I'm with the RCMP, and we're investigating. We want you to help us catch the real bad guy. Is there any way you'd be willing to buy, $2,000 in Apple gift cards and try to pose, we got him online, and we'll try to, we think we can catch him, kind of thing, right? So that's where that comes into play, and then lo and behold, they hose you for the gift cards, you're out the money, there is no real bad guy, and you've just helped them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. So romance scams, so this is another, like I said, another common one. I'm just gonna load up all the bullet points here so I can see. Okay. So they use every type of dating or social networking site. The most common one just happens to be Facebook. It's just by the age demographic, right? I don't know, anybody here have TikTok? Or you guys on Snapchat and stuff, right? Typically not, it's just an age demographic thing. But they do use various accounts, and then they're created using photos stolen from legitimate people. I just found out the other day that you can actually search an image on Google. I was like mind blown, I didn't know you could do that. So if they send you a picture, you can actually go into Google Images, and there's a little tab where you can upload the photo they sent you and search that specific photo, and it will show you everywhere online where that photo is located. So oftentimes it's like a military personnel or a pilot, they work overseas, oh, I can't come home, there's always some excuse that comes up, I got delayed, I can't make my flight. Although that's a reasonable excuse nowadays with Air Canada and everything being a disaster. But realistically, that long before COVID, that was the excuse, right? Though I got delayed or I got redeployed or whatever. So much so that the military, I know the Canadian military actually deters their members from posting images in their military uniform on their personal accounts. Specifically, if you're a handsome guy or a good-looking girl and you post your images, sometimes people will take advantage of that. So. Yeah, typically they start as friendships, and you'll often see that it moves pretty quickly, right? So this guy's supposed to be a pilot, right? Or they're supposed to be somebody very successful business owner, but all of a sudden they need 20 grand. You're like, well, I don't know what you do with your money because you're halfway across the world traveling all the time, but you need my 20 grand. Right, so sometimes it quickly moves from a friendship stage to they're very infatuated with you and they're in love with you. And as soon as they establish that, they're looking for any amount of money, right? Typically the way it works. So they gain the victim's trust for the money, and they prey on the goodwill and kind heart. That's basically what it comes down to. So if you're a good person, that's why the grandparent scam always works, right? They tell you, don't call the parents, right? And what they were doing is going on the phone and just muffling their sound and say, Grandma, do you know who this is? And then they say, oh my God, Billy, is that you? Yeah, this is Billy. I've been in a car accident, I hurt my nose, that's why my voice sounds different. I've got, I'm in the hospital, I hit my head. So then all of a sudden, okay, it starts making sense. Yeah, sounds like Billy, geez, I don't know, hope he's okay. Right, and the next thing you know, it's, they don't tell mom and dad, they're gonna be so mad, right? And then the grandparent's like, oh yeah, no, I won't tell anybody. And they're going to the bank and taking out 10 grand in cash, and all kinds of bad stuff happens, right? So that's just preying on goodwill and the kind-heartedness. So they know that you guys care about your grandkids, and they just have like no conscience whatsoever, right? So they prey on that and take that into as their leverage, so to speak. And finally, so this type of fraud relies heavily on victim emotions and may last for months, years, or until the victim has nothing left to give, unfortunately. So I have one right now where my victim is a retired nurse from RVH, very smart lady, very educated, went to university, is 78 years old, and I had to call her in, where we were in October already. So I had to call her in it was about 2 weeks ago to come in for a statement. And she's sort of, Tori, I can't make it at 9 o'clock. I have a job interview. So I won't be able to make it. 76 years old. She's going back to work because she lost all of her savings in a romance scam. So it's over $300,000 over a period of 5 years. It's not a very good day for her, not a very fun day for me at work, right? So not that we call people with good news very often, being a police officer anyway, but that one tends to hit a little bit closer to home, right? She owns a house, and she, with the real estate market, she'll bounce back relatively well, but that's a tough pill to swallow, right? I've got about 100,000 different reasons and excuses to spend 300 grand than to give it to some schmuck, right? So that's the reality of it. And likewise, sometimes people are out, a significant amount of money. And I've had one guy, I said, okay, well, we can look up the IP address, we can do a follow-up investigation. Is there anything you'd like me to do? Would you like me to prosecute it? And he goes, you know what? Over the last 3 years, I had a lot of fun. I had fun talking to whoever the person was. It made me feel good. So I said, okay, well, what do you want me to do? They're like, it's a life lesson, whatever, and they're moving on, right? So, and some people are still convinced that it's real. Like they're dead set that this person, that I'm out of my mind, and they tell me to get out of their house. So it happens quite frequently, unfortunately. So another one here we're dealing with is prize scams. Consumers are informed that they are the winner of a large lottery or sweepstakes. Often it's like you hear the tugboat tooting away in the background, you won a cruise, right? That kind of stuff. You don't get those too often anymore, but that used to happen pretty frequently. They still try to target that with some of the older population because, again, that's just one of those, like you would have heard about that, right? If someone like my niece, who's 19, answers the phone, she's like, I'm not going on a cruise, right? Whatever, and then they hang up the phone. But prior to receiving any winning, the victim's asked to pay a number of upfront fees. Like, you won $2 million, but all you have to do is pay 20 grand in taxes for us to release it at the border, right? Like, it's just, it seems like it, we're all laughing about it now, but it in the moment, I don't know what you're going through in your life. Like, I have 2 young kids. I'm always broke, doesn't matter how much money we're making. So between dance class and swimming lessons, but if like $2 million sounds good, right? Like, so, okay, I'll pony up 10 grand for 2 million right on. Like, that's, seems like a pretty good return on investment. So, problem is obviously it's all a farce, and they deliver the prize goods and charitable donations were part of the prize money. So they have recently stepped out of their comfort zone and started giving you other people's money, which I always laugh at. So they'll say, here's 10,000, but they just, ripped off of somebody else to get you to kind of lure you in a little bit. And then you reinvest some of your own money by giving them your banking information. They just keep paying you from your own line of credit or your own home equity line of credit or something, so it looks like you're getting money into your bank account. The fees are often requested and completely untraceable. So Bitcoin is not that it's untraceable, it just takes me a really long time and about 15 cups of coffee before I'm getting anywhere. And unless it's Monero, because Monero is really difficult, but cryptocurrency is a whole separate lecture on its own. I can touch briefly on it today, but there's the big one we talked about, right? Google Play, Apple iTunes, prepaid MasterCards, or in some cases, even cash. But gift cards are a nuisance because they just ask you to get the PIN number on the back, and I can't trace a gift card. It's like cash, right? So as soon as they get you to scratch off the thing and say, can you give me the PIN number or the security code on the back, and you give that to them over the phone in an email or whatever, gonzo. Like, there's no... It's just like cashing in that value, and you could use it like Google Play. It could be on any Google device. They don't keep a record of it because Google assumes if you're loading money onto your account, you're doing so lawfully. They don't tell me what purchase it's made for, and like we're talking sometimes $2,000 or $3,000 in gift cards that are just gone, right? So, and there's nothing that me or any other investigator is going to be able to do about it. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, no winnings are ever received. So the $2 million check is not coming. It's not tied up at the border. And there's no more delays that are going to be happening, right? Boy, what a depressing, presentation this is, right? Like, okay, now that I've got everybody real melancholy. Okay, so how can you protect yourself? Good news, yay. There are some things you can do. So this is just a couple. We're going to talk a little bit about it, and if the screen jumps ahead of me, I'll go over and bring it back. But never assume the phone numbers appearing on your call display are accurate. That's a huge one. Sometimes it'll come in from a 705 number. There are lots of really, really cool gizmos. I can make my phone number look like any phone number I want it to. And all I have to do is press *66, and go through an app on my phone, and it can appear as I can make it a Texas number, I can make it whatever phone number I want. So people see 705, they think it's legit. That's if they're even doing that much of their own due diligence, right? But sometimes they mask it to come up as a number that's actually a real number. Like I called the guy at an Ottawa car dealership and started giving him the gears, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but somebody must have used my number, and I called his boss, and everything checked out. So sure enough, they just happened, whatever the phone number had generated and populated on this lady's phone is actually the name of some guy who works at a Nissan dealership in Ottawa, super nice guy. But yeah, he was totally taken back and didn't have a clue of what I was talking about. And I said, your number's been used in a scam, and then away we went. So no government agency will contact you and tell you that your SIN is blocked or suspended, nor will they threaten you with legal action. The police are not going to call you and say there's a warrant out for your arrest. They're just going to come and arrest you. I can guarantee you. That's kind of how we do business, right? Why would I give you a heads up? It makes it way less fun for me. So yeah, we're never going to end a CRA, anything. They don't, like, have anybody even tried to contact the CRA? Like, good luck. It's impossible to get a hold of the CRA. They're definitely not going to call you. Like, they don't even return your calls. You're trying to get, hi, you've reached Canadian, right? Like, it's, some of the stuff seems pretty common sense, but, so they'll always contact you by registered mail. That's their big thing, right? You ever go to the mailbox, all of a sudden it's a brown envelope. You're like, oh God, what are they assessing now? And I'm going to get dinged for an extra 10 grand or something, right? So we will never threaten you with any legal action. We're not going to say you owe us money or we're going to arrest you. It's extortion, folks. That's a corrupt police service or government agency, right? So we won't do that to you. No government or law enforcement agency will demand an immediate payment or to submit all of your money for investigation. So that's all done through the courts. We don't collect bail money over the phone, right? Maybe if you're in the States and you're breaking the law somewhere you don't live, yes, there is that. Or if we stop someone who's from California and they're speeding, 50 kilometers over, yes, there is a mechanism in place. We have to hold them for provincial bail and we can get money before they go back home. That is true. But if you are a Canadian citizen, you live in this country and you bank and you're employed in this country, we will not demand cash payment for anything. It's all done at the court level. It's highly out of character. So if any time a government agency is asking you for money, especially if it's money before they perform an action for you, that's the biggest red flag, okay? Beware of individuals quickly professing their love for you. That's kind of odd, isn't it, eh? Like, I love you. Oh my God, get away from me. No, it's just more so like if you're online and it's someone you've just recently met, maybe like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? Like, I don't know, it just, that one seems kind of funny, but beware of individuals who claim to be wealthy but need to borrow money. So that's like I said, right? The guy is supposed to be some highly touted Air Canada pilot, but he all of a sudden needs 10 grand. Like for what, right? Just doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's not adding up. I don't care how handsome he is, don't send him any money. When trying to meet in person, be suspicious if they always provide you with reasons to cancel. So this kind of ties into that example. Oh, my flight got delayed. Oh, I'm sick. My daughter, something happened here. It's like people who are worth your time and want to be invested in a relationship with you will make the time to make you a priority, right? Also offer life coach advice if anybody needs life coach assistance after the presentation. Oh boy, never send intimate photos, there's an odd one. Or video of yourself as they may be used to blackmail you. If I see anybody's nudes in this audience, I'm gonna be very upset with you, so don't send them to anybody unless it's a consensual relationship, all right? Never accept or send money to a third party under any circumstances. Okay, that's a little bit vague. I mean, I guess if it's expected, like PayPal is, I love PayPal. It's very secure. It can keep track of all your transactions. They act as a secure third party. So they actually take your money. They wait until you get the goods. If you don't get the goods that you're buying, they then do a clawback. It's like using a credit card, right? So under the Consumer Protection Act, they'll take your money back and return it to you. So if you do have the option to use PayPal, I'm not paid or endorsed by PayPal by any means. I just investigate a lot of crimes. So they have a very good security system in place. So they're one of the better ones. Never allow an individual to remotely access your computer. So again, for any reason, like the bank will call, right? This is a pretty common one. Hi, this is from RBC, right? If the bank is calling you and they're asking for your information, shouldn't your bank already have the information they're asking you for? Like, what kind of services do you have? I don't know, dude, you're from the bank. Like, you tell me how much money I owe you. Like, you take it out of my account every month, right? So if they're calling you and they say, I've had them confirm, like, can you confirm which accounts you have, but no numbers or anything. Just say, like, do you have a mortgage with us? I said, no, I'm with a private lender. Okay, thank you very much. Certain questions, if it's a legitimate phone call. But if they're asking for specific things like your mother's maiden name, all that, like they have access to all that. That's all inside their records. If they want your street address, all that, they know all that information. The bank will never call you and ask you for your name. That's backwards on its own, right? Like how did you get this phone number and why do you need me to give it to you again, right? Like, just doesn't really make sense. So that's the first page. Let's see, there are a couple more. So verify any incoming calls to your credit card company. So you can always check the number on the back of the card. If it's not coming from the same phone number, chances are could be a scam. You can always end the original call and wait a few minutes. So because they can have the ability to stay on the line, if you say, okay, you're calling from, I bank with Scotiabank, so you're calling from Scotia line of credit, I'm gonna call you guys right back. So you hang up the phone, wait about 5 or 6 seconds because they have the ability to sometimes remain on the line. So then you pick up the phone, like if you hang up right away and pick it up again, you can dial the number, they're still on the line, like it's still an active phone call. And then, hi, yeah, this is Scotiabank, right? Meanwhile, it's the same guy you were just talking to on the line. So just wait. Good rule of thumb is like put the phone down, go do any small task, go make a coffee, a cup of tea, something, whatever, come back to the phone and then call them back. Never provide any personal financial information over the telephone. That's always a good one because everybody who needs that information will either already have it or it'll be you're entering it like online on a website or something. Only credit card company can adjust the interest rate with their own product. So sometimes you'll get different cards coming and saying, oh, we had a new introductory interest rate, right? And that's still a similar type of scam. They want you to provide your financial information so they can give you this brand new interest rate. Meanwhile, they're ripping money off of whatever you have, right? Line of credit, credit card. Research all companies and contractors that are offering services before hiring them. So don't be afraid to ask for, different references and stuff. Like if you live in your own residence and someone's coming because you need someone to do your roof, or you need someone to pave your driveway, you need someone to do just general maintenance in your backyard, whatever you're hiring a service for, call people, right? Google them. Like Google's a great, they have Google reviews and everything else. You can kind of get a sense. So a good example of that is I had a gentleman come, probably not the right term for him, but this guy come to this lady's house to do some generic work, just like wash the siding on her house, right? And gave her a business card, but the business card actually had completely false information. So if you had just checked the address on the business card, it's completely fraudulent. It's for an address in Bradford that doesn't exist. Like you type it into Google Maps and it's nothing, right? The phone number is bogus, everything's bogus. But he has a business card, had cool little rounded edges, the whole 9 yards, like looked like a real fancy business card, but it was completely bogus, right? So sometimes just doing a little bit of your own due diligence. I know it kind of seems like a nuisance, but it could save you a lot more headache in the long run. So I already touched on that. If you call on the landline, they may not be completely disconnected, so wait a few minutes. Or if you can, use a completely different phone. If you have a home phone, use your cell phone or vice versa, and that way you really ensure there's no connection there on the line. Financial institutions will never ask for assistance from the public for internal investigations. They will hardly tell you anything, actually. Your bank, if you call them, they'll say, our security team is looking into it, thanks so much for your help. But they are very, very rarely do they ask or procure any more information from you. And it's because they really are unsure themselves too. They don't know if maybe you have something to do with your own compromise, like compromising your own bank records. Like I've talked to a lot of the bank security personnel, and the reason why they're so kind of tight-lipped on everything is because it's their investigation. So, and if they award you that you were a victim of fraud and they give you your money back, that's their decision. But they aren't allowed to do so with any input from you or me. They won't tell the police a lot of information either. So. The only way to participate in any foreign lottery is to go to the country of origin and purchase a ticket. So if they say you've won $2 million from somewhere, in Africa, ask yourself, have I been to Africa and bought a lottery ticket? If the answer is no, chances are it's a scam, right? Same thing, like someone, my neighbor the other day, my girls are outside playing and they come up to me and they go, listen, I'm pretty sure this is a scam. It's always a great way to start a conversation, right? I'm pretty sure this is a scam, but my mom got a call saying there's a package waiting for her at the border and they have to send, $50 for duty. I go, okay, did your mom order anything? She goes, no, I don't think so. I go, why would there be a package waiting for your mother at the border? Like if she hasn't ordered anything, packages don't just randomly appear, right? Like you have to order something to get delivered to you. So seems pretty straightforward, right? But and in Canada, if you win the lottery, you're not required to pay any fees or taxes in advance. You don't win the $70 million lotto max tonight, and they say, congratulations, pay us $35,000 first, right? Like They just give you the money, and you know, I'm sure there's some other implications that come with that, but you don't ever have to pay anything in advance to be awarded. Like you go to the casino, right? You're up at Rama and you do well on one of the slot machines, the casino's not asking you for money up front before, they just pay you your winnings. That's kind of how we do things in our country, right? So confirm with other relatives the whereabouts of the family member or friend. This is huge. So I get it. They say, don't tell my mom or my dad, right? If it's I'm just gonna use that one because that's the most common one. We're still seeing the grandparent scam pop up in just different ways, shapes, and forms, but it's in essence, it's always your grandchild, son or daughter, is in trouble. It's time sensitive. It's like, we need the money right now. Don't tell mom or dad because they'll be real ticked off and they're gonna ground me forever, you know, anything like that. So they're trying to act on the like the necessity of right now, right? They need the money as quickly as possible. Well, all they say is not to tell mom or dad. Doesn't mean you can't call their brother or their sister or somebody or anybody else, right? Family, friend, whoever, aunt, uncle, just say, have you, you know, because one time I had one, the lady was like right on the hook, ready to send 10 grand to this guy. And she goes, I just better call, you know, her brother and see. So she calls and he goes, yeah, she's at my place. We're up at the cottage. We've been here for a week. Like, she's not arrested. There's nothing wrong with her. She's here, like, right? He goes, I'll go check. I'm pretty sure she fell asleep last night. You know, we were up here. So, so just doing that one little extra step and just kind of like having a buddy system, basically, just to ensure that you're not acting on anything and out of duress, right? You're not doing something right away that's going to stress you out and going to, you know, end up costing you a lot of money, right, in the long run. Okay, so let's see. The next one is here. There's a couple of resources for you guys. I did bring a few things as well that I gave to Pauline. They're kind of fridge magnets for the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. What I love about the Anti-Fraud Centre is they have a senior support group that's operated by seniors, like retired seniors helping other seniors. That's awesome. They're so great. Sometimes you call them just to check with something and you end up talking to them for 3 hours about anything but police work and what I'm supposed to call them for, right? Like, we end up talking about all kinds of stuff. There's a lady who's a Maple Leafs fan just as much as I am, and we get going on the phone sometimes for a couple hours. So if you're lonely and you love to chat, you can call them. But also, if you have a legitimate fraud concern, you should call them. So that's a hyperlink, which doesn't do you much good if you can't come up and tap the screen. So, but basically that will hyperlink you to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. That's the phone number there. You can Google it. That's the website as well. New scams. Anybody have anything new and exciting that I haven't heard about or that I haven't mentioned or had one today, yesterday, last week? A couple hands up. Yeah, go ahead.
My husband, who's a shrewd businessman, just got caught in a scam recently by receiving.
So the example was, I know some people said they couldn't hear it, is like her husband has a coworker, it was Israel, right? And so he received an email from them, so that's an email compromise, right? So when they get a hold of somebody somehow, some way, it's sent from that's a legitimate source. So I can get an email from a friend, a person that I recognize, but it's obviously not that person. Saying that I'm out of country, I got caught up, it's my son, daughter, whoever's birthday, I'd really like to get a gift for them, but I'm not gonna make it back in time. Can you buy a gift card for me so I can at least send them a gift card and whatever, right? But obviously that person has the ability to buy a gift card online themselves and send it to them. So it's like, when you start to stop and think about it, you're like, does this make sense? Not really, right? So, but it's come from a credible source. It's an old friend. You trust that person, right? And all of a sudden, it's like now you just go into help mode, right? Everybody wants to be the hero. They want to try to help out as quickly as they can. And it's going to end up costing you a couple grand, right? So, well, a couple grand and you know, maybe a 3-week argument depending on how things work in your house. But that would be that would be a big "I told you so." I'd be wearing that one for a while for sure. So, yes.
Another one too is it happened to a very good friend of mine in another town, Kathy Stacy. She was on a big hit and her house was broken into.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of things stolen.
Yep.
And I keep telling people not to do that.
Yeah. So that's true. Did everybody hear that example? No? Okay. I'm just going to start throwing people the microphone. So what that example was her friend that was on vacation. She's posting photos, right? So you're down the beach in Mexico being like, free Mai Tais, woohoo, right? And then next thing you know, someone breaks into your house, right? Because they know you're not home. And so that's a different type of scumbag, right? That's somebody that's actually taken the time to go out and physically cause, you know, damage to your property. I deal with the weasels, people who hide behind a keyboard and take your money and they're too scared to show like the light of day, right? That's kind of my clientele most of the time. But that typically will stem from the same thing, right? Your online activity we could, another, again, digital footprint, that's a whole other presentation. I can spend probably another 45 minutes talking about how to kind of be smarter online, right? That kind of stemmed from my high school days, just talking to those kids, right, about making smart choices. So, but no, that's absolutely true. That can happen, and unfortunately, if you set yourself up, for failure, then it kind of tends to happen, right? So, anybody else with any other new types of scams or anything? Way in the back, yeah. Yeah, so I'll give you another tip that we learned. I did it when I was investigating this last grandparent scam. I had so what happens is we do a media release, right? We say, hey, we caught the guy, congratulations, Barrie Police, right? And then all of a sudden, all these people start emailing me and say, I think I'm a victim too. And then, my workload goes from 10 occurrences to 200 occurrences overnight. And I'm never home and everybody's happy. So a good thing to do is if it's your grandson, whoever the person is on the phone, right? It's obviously not your actual grandson. I say that, but we know it's not them. Just ask them a question that they would know the answer to, right? So like my grandma would be like, oh, how's the girls, right? Well, I have 2 daughters. Well, if they say, how are the boys doing? Oh, the boys are just fine. Well, obviously I'm full of it, right? So that's not, how's your cat? How's your dog? What's your dog's name again? Just, oh, grandma, you're being silly, right? But just say like, no, I want to know your dog's name because I forgot it, or something, right? Like, you can get creative. You have free creative, will to do as you please, right? And waste their time equally as much as they're wasting yours. But just try to confirm that person is the real person, right? So just ask them a simple question that that a grandparent would ask, right? Like I can't even escape a conversation with my grandparent without talking about her grandkids, right? Like that just happens all the time. So I think that's pretty much it. The last one that already skipped ahead on me there was any questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
I consider myself good on the computer, but when it comes to Facebook, help us with computer. Because when you say Google, I know Google, but some people may not even have a computer.
No, that's it, right? And a lot of what I do is we do stuff with our corporate communications team, and we put stuff out on social media all the time, but unless it's on the 6 o'clock news for most people, they're not gonna be in tune, right? So a lot of what I do relies heavily on, say, your parents and your grandkids and your kids, relaying the information to a lot of you guys. So it's not a perfect system. And maybe now if COVID kind of under control, knock on wood, right? But if everything goes the way it's supposed to go, then might be open up more in-person networking and stuff, which I know a lot of seniors prefer to do anyway, and that's huge, right? The huge social aspect of it. So I agree with you though. It's just something. At the end of the day, if you're gonna be, you don't have to step out of your comfort zone, right? If they're asking you to do stuff, I know I mentioned Bitcoin, I haven't even talked about it because it's I usually ask someone want to explain what Bitcoin is to me, and everyone's just looking at me like I'm sideways, right? So, if you're not comfortable with that, and maybe you are, I know some seniors that are very fluent in cryptocurrency and they handle it very well. It's just if you're not comfortable with it, a big one right now is utilities. So Electra is calling all the businesses in town saying, we're going to shut your hydro off unless you pay us Bitcoin. No one's going to ask for Bitcoin payment for your utilities, right? And they're not going to shut them off right away. You go into months into arrears before they cut your hydro, months, right? So slightly different for businesses because it's not a necessity. But if you're a residential homeowner, they're not going to cut your hydro because you missed a bill payment. It's just not going to happen, right? They'd rather pile it up and collect interest. So, sorry.
What about the scam that's happening with seniors right now with Ford? Not
Yep.
Ford, but with Doug Ford. He's saying that seniors, there's all this money in a pot. All we have to do is go in, open it up, and there's thousands and thousands of dollars that seniors can claim. So they're really targeting the seniors.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not too sure because I haven't had a lot of experience with that, right? Be here, that might be more of a GTA or closer to the city, closer to the hub kind of thing. But I haven't had a lot of experience with that. The most we've had right now, especially targeting seniors, is a grandparent scam one way or the other. And you do get the odd, like I said, romance scam where somebody will come to you and they've been in a relationship for 2 years and all of a sudden they think, usually it's the child, right? So their daughter or son will say, listen, we tried having a conversation with my mom. She's not listening to us. Can you just check in on her and see? And then those can go either way. But I'm not really privy on the Doug Ford one. But there's always something new, right? There's always going to be something. As soon as I figure something out and we get further ahead, there's going to be some new inventive scheme and some way to take care of, money. COVID was nuts, right? We had people were applying for CERB. The amount of CERB fraud that was coming in, people were applying for benefits and double dipping and this, that, and the other, because at one point it was Service Canada was handling it, but then You know, like public health was doing a certain part too. Like there was 2 entities. Like if you're applying online, you had to go through this agency. If you're applying over the phone, you go through this. It was just a mess, right? So, yeah, unfortunately, we just take it one step at a time. So, my main goal for this presentation is everybody, if you're out like talking to your friends, next time you're at breakfast or coffee or anything like that, just word of mouth is my greatest asset. So if you can let just one person know and that person lets another person know, it's like a friendly pyramid scam, but then everybody gets protected instead of getting ripped off. So, all right, any other questions, comments, concerns, rude remarks? Anybody? No?
I have a question.
Yes.
I would just like to know, and you know, it's so wonderful what you're doing. How successful are the police with squashing these scammers? With the information that you're getting from your audience?
Yeah.
Are you successful often?
I mean, I'm highly successful because I'm a great investigator, so I don't know if this is being recorded, but no, I'm really not. That's the reality, right? Like, truth be told, it's we get lucky, and we have the resources, or I have the knowledge, I have the drive, and like I am a good cop. But when it comes down to it, it's like we just don't have the time because if it's cryptocurrency related, it goes into one. Well, then they have mixers, so it goes into one wallet. And then that wallet splits it into 100 separate transactions. That's 100 production orders I have to write. Each production order takes me 6 hours. So that's 600 hours of my life I'll never get back. And then it goes from that into another, and it just goes right into cyberspace. And the appropriate tracing software is 120 grand a year for the licensing. And I asked the board, and they laughed at me and told me to get out. Right? Like they're not going to give me that kind of money. Unfortunately, we just don't have the means, right? If it's Toronto and they're getting 6,000 occurrences a day, yeah, maybe. But in Barrie, it's just it's a numbers game, and that's kind of what it comes down to. So
The scams themselves are really
Yeah.
evergreen. They're always out there. They're just always looking for new
for sure,
ways to-
yeah, absolutely. Are they playing the music? Is it time for me to get off the stage? I feel like okay. All right. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you.